But that's the gist of it. If I lived a perfectly healthy lifestyle, never ate a bite of sugar in my life, I still would have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It is, as far as they know, it's a genetic thing. They have not figured out the mystery of it all yet, the science behind it. It's some kind of a genetic thing. And there are theories about it, us being exposed to different viruses during our early years and things like that. But there's really no understanding as to why we get it. But one thing's for sure is there's nothing we can do to prevent it, and there's nothing we can do to make it go away. And insulin is not a cure. Insulin is basically just a Band-Aid to help us get through life without dying. We still really need a cure. You know, we need to know that we can have children and they have been treated with whatever miracle we can come up with someday that can guarantee us that they will never have this disease. We really need that. So when you see the blue ribbons with a little blood drop on them, it says, please find a cure, we need a cure. That's what it's all about. Insulin is not a cure. Insulin is just life support as far as we're concerned, type 1 diabetics. So anyway, that's the gist of it all. So if somebody if you try to tell a type 1 diabetic that, you know, like, for example, I'm at my salon. I talk to people a lot. People in my chair, you know, I'm a small business owner. I do hair. And they might see my insulin pump, or they might hear me mention something about being a diabetic. And they can start talking about their grandma or their aunt or their friend or anybody. And as soon as they say to me, oh, no, you know, my uncle, he just had to take pills, but he had it really bad. And, you know, you really can't eat this, that, and the other thing. The first thing you want to do is say, I can eat whatever I want. It's not the same diabetes. Because technically we can. I mean, we have to be moderated about everything we do. But as a type 1 diabetic, we can have a bowl of ice cream. We just have to know how to properly dose for it, how to properly take insulin for it. And that can be complicated. That in itself is a whole science of its own. But we have to know how to do that. We have to know that after we eat sweets or foods that aren't so good for us, foods that are very high in carbohydrates, we have to continue to test our bloods. We have to make sure that we take corrections of insulin doses to help bring it down if we didn't take enough in the first place and it's high. So there are things that we have to do, but we can eat whatever we want. And often we need to eat cookies or sugar or sweet juice or candy if we've taken too much insulin and for one reason or another we haven't eaten enough carbohydrates for it to cover. We're going to end up with a low, and lows are really scary, really awful feelings. And so don't ever try to take sugar away from a type 1 diabetic when they need it, because I'll tell you what, you might lose a finger. I mean, we are like, it's a really, really awful feeling. You get shaky, you get sweaty, and it's not like a low blood sugar that other people may experience who don't give themselves insulin from an outside source. Low blood sugar from a synthetic insulin that you've injected into your body comes on so differently, and it's so strong, and it brings you down into these low numbers that are the abyss of blood sugars. I mean, I think the lowest I've ever consciously been was 28, and I was extremely confused, and I was able to get my doctor on the phone, and he told me to disconnect my pump, and you know, there were things that I did. My husband was able to get me juice, but in these situations, we are not ourselves, and we really do need the sweets. So that's one thing you never want to interfere with anybody about, and you probably don't want to try to tell any diabetic that they shouldn't eat that, or can you have that? That's a common one. Can you even have that? Yes, I can have whatever I want. But even if I was a type 1 diabetic, or I'm sorry, even if I was a type 2 diabetic, like really, who are you to say, can I have that? Like, that can be a very invasive feeling, you know. It's almost like violating our own personal privacy of our bodies and how we handle it. So that's something that you might want to hold off on. And if you find that someone lashes out at you or comes off as, you know, angry or frustrated when you try to tell them what you know about diabetes, or if you find that somebody wants to talk to you and inform you the way that I've just gone on for God knows how long, be patient with them, because there's a lot to know, there's a lot to understand, and they're just trying to educate you and inform you so that in the future you can say, oh, hey, I understand you're low, let me get you some juice. Or, it's so important to us that the world gets it and understands the difference. Anyway, it was really important to me to get that information out there to the world, because in my Facebook group, which is a really big group, that is one of the most common problems. One of the most common things that people post about are those memes that say, Johnny had 12 candy bars. He ate 9 of them. What does Johnny have? Johnny has diabetes. Well, for somebody like me, that kind of is like kind of like a kick in the gut, like whether I ate 9 candy bars or not, I was going to get this disease. And in the case of type 2 diabetes, those people certainly don't ask for it, and it's no walk in the park. So I'm not going to take that away from them either. It's really not easy living with type 2 either. And it's also usually a situation where those people are expected to change something that they have their entire life, habits that they've been having their entire life. And there are people standing over them saying, you're going to lose your limbs, you're going to die, you're going to lose your eyesight, you're going to have heart problems, you're going to get, lose a toe, you're going to get an infection. Telling them all these things. If you don't stop smoking, and this person's been smoking their entire life, stop eating cake, stop eating candy, skip dessert every single night, no more fast food. I mean, these are things when you come at somebody who's been doing that stuff their whole life, whether they've chosen to be healthy or not, it's going to be really, really tough on them. And so I don't ever want to come off as, oh, don't say I'm a type 2, I'm a type 1, and, we deserve more respect, because that certainly is not where I'm trying to go with this. It's definitely just a matter of the fact that they are 2 very different types of diseases, and we can all be sensitive about our diagnosis and about what we have and how people perceive us and how people judge us and what we're doing with our lives. It's very, very common in my group for people to post, oh my God, I was at work and, my coworker knows I'm a diabetic, so she didn't even offer me any cake for so-and-so's birthday. And, I had to argue with her and tell her I can have cake, but you're on an insulin pump. And the person gets all upset. And she's like, just because I'm on an insulin pump, that's one of the reasons why I can have cake, because I have my insulin right here pumping into me, and I can just tell the pump, look, I'm having 60 grams of carbohydrates right now, and it might be a bit much, and it might not be the healthiest choice for me, but I can have it, and I can still live my life and be healthy. Now, somebody with type 2 diabetes could probably have more problems. They don't have that kind of control. So if they choose to have that cake, they could have a surge of insulin from their natural occurrence inside their body, which could cause them to later on have lows. Or they could continue on with insulin resistance, and regardless of what their body's producing, not absorb it properly, not use it properly, and wind up with highs. And they test and they see these numbers and they have to answer to their doctors. They really don't know what else to do about it. Like, okay, I ate a piece of cake, I ate a donut, and there's no taking that back. So that's a whole different battle. That's a whole different emotional battle. And for us, at least we can say, all right, look, I made a bad choice. I ate something that wasn't that great for me, but here, I know how to treat my disease. And even if it gets a little crazy for me, I can work this out. The stuff that's tough on us is the stuff that we can't control. There are times when our insulin doesn't work properly for so many different reasons. There are times when just no matter what we eat, we cannot get our blood sugar down. No matter how much insulin we take, we cannot get our blood sugar down. Often it's because maybe we're fighting an illness, maybe we're hormonal, maybe we have a problem with our injection site or our pump site where there's a little scar tissue built up and the tubing is bent, or the needle isn't getting in to where the insulin's being absorbed properly. There are so many factors that come into play, and those are really difficult days for a type 1. Those, control is a big thing in the life of a type 1 diabetic, and those days where we feel like we can't control anything are really hard, physically and emotionally. They're really hard. There are also days that no matter what we do, we can't get our blood sugar up, and that's an awful feeling. Every time you check your blood sugar, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you feel crappy. You're trying to take in all these carbohydrates, sugars, juices, things that will bring it up, and maybe it'll come up for a little bit, but for one reason or another, you just can't. I don't know. I don't know if that's because we are, for some reason, ultra sensitive that day to our insulin, or somehow getting more insulin than we realize. But like I said, it's very complicated, very complex. And those are the things that are really scary for us. It's not about diet and exercise. Diet and exercise is certainly necessary for us to be healthy. And from my perspective, diet and exercise has helped me a lot with being healthy with type 1. It helps me to need less insulin. And it helps me to feel better about myself. And for all the other reasons, diet and exercise is good for you. Diet and exercise for a type 2 diabetic is a necessity. Proper diet and exercise is a necessity. And another issue is often type 2 diabetics aren't as mobile. If they're diagnosed later in life and they're overweight, or they have knee problems, or they have, issues with walking, it's not like they can just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to start eating salads and go for a jog every day. It's not that easy. It's really rough for type 2s. So anyway, that's the difference. And hopefully that helps. Hopefully you're able to decipher some of all this mumbo jumbo and understand us a little bit better. And to all my type 2 friends out there, we are brothers and sisters. We do struggle with high blood sugars and low blood sugars, and it's no fun. And we are all judged differently and wrongly for having this disease we call diabetes. So I hope that you all know that as type 1s, we can appreciate what you all go through emotionally and physically. We really can. We just often feel like the minority, that little 4 or 5% that is so complicated. Our lives are so complicated and so consumed by counting every carbohydrate and injecting every time we eat or do anything that we get frustrated sometimes, and we don't want to be mixed up with type 2s. So anyway, hope that was helpful, guys. And comment, share, ask questions. I'm happy to do whatever I can to help educate the rest of the world about the difference between type 1 and type 2. Thanks for watching.